So the other day I got my hands on the Fujifilm X-C4 with the 27mm 2.8 lens. As some of you all know, I've been a fan of the X100 line of cameras for a long time. So I thought, hey, the X-E4 with this kit lens looks great. So let me give it a shot. And I had a good time testing it. I took some pictures at home and I went out to the street and I took some pictures there, and this is the kind of stuff that I got. Everything was fine. It worked great until I got a call from a friend saying that his dad has passed, and I decided that I will go to their house for the prayer the next morning, and this is like a viewing, and this happens to be on the same day of the funeral, the morning of the funeral. And I showed up there with the camera, and to my surprise, my friend saw me with my camera bag, and then he said, "Hey Abhishek, mind taking a few pictures?" And then I looked around. I saw that there was no official photographer. They hadn't hired one because that was not part of the thought process. It was like a sudden thing. And then when my friend asked me to take pictures, I suddenly switched on to this work mode. And if you are a professional artist watching this of any kind, you will know exactly what I'm talking about, right? So I go in there with the camera bag in hand, not intending to shoot much, definitely not intending to be the official photographer. But now there is this thing in front of you for an event which is serious and solemn and unique and special like this, and then you are given that responsibility. So I just kind of switched on to this work mode. The question that came to my mind at that time was, Abhishek, are you prepared? Are you prepared? We all like to use the word storyteller, and we use it so often, but then as photographers or as artists, it is a great privilege to be doing what we are doing, but there are situations when that privilege is attached to a responsibility. So the question is, are we prepared? And for me at that time, I just had the X-C4 with the 27 kit lens, one camera, one lens, and then half a battery. The battery wasn't even full charge, but then I had to be on work mode. So then what next, right? So and then it was a funeral, so I stuck on to the prayer. I took pictures there, and then I was there with the family for the whole day. I went to the cemetery where they actually had the burial, and on the way I plugged in my camera in the car and did a top up for the battery. And just to think that in that situation as a photographer, I was at the right place and at the right time. I was meant to be there. And how I want to see how do I make most of the situation with what I have. And it's not just being there as a photographer who is asked to take pictures. It is more than that. When we talk about life and when we talk about death, Mark Reboud once said, taking pictures is savoring life intensely every 100th of a second. Yes, photographers do that, but it's also something more. When life itself is fleeting and we see it passing all around us, how does it affect how we see our craft? Because as a photographer, we are trying to preserve that slice of life. And now as a photographer, you're put in a position where you are trying to preserve a moment which is after the stage of life. But it's also hopeful at the same time. So how do you process that? How do we as photographers process life itself and the passing of life? How do you see this? All these are questions that we have to ask ourselves. So again, the question is, photographer or artist, are you prepared? Prepared both to capture and save a life through moments measuring in milliseconds, right? Especially when we talk about photography, but also prepared for the journey and the passing of life itself. Among other things, the instrument in our hand, the camera, is a great tool for us to think deeply about such things. One practical takeaway for me is to remind myself to take the camera with me every day, and this is something that I used to do a lot many years ago, but of late I must confess that I haven't been doing it so often, right? This is like an answer to the question of being prepared. And I was having a chat with a friend of mine who's also mentored me, Sanjeev Chaudhary, and then he echoed the same statements. He was saying how for a long time, and even today, where he steps out and he shoots rolls and rolls and rolls of 35mm film, which when he comes back and he sees is garbage. It's, the pictures don't make sense, he doesn't like it and stuff. But then the question is, the next day, do you go out and shoot again? That's where things change. That's where your being prepared comes in, and that's what takes you to the next step. Creativity is how we process this world through our tools. We memorialize, in some sense, through our camera. We memorialize the stopping of time, but we also memorialize the passing of time and of life itself. Now, one may ask, what is the purpose? Who do these pictures serve? I can't help but think that these photographs are like a visual version of the wreath of flowers that is put on the coffin. It's like a fragrance, like a visual fragrance, if I may, of the people who were once with us. So the fragrance is there, the fragrance is available. But the question still remains, photographer, artist, are you prepared?